Hey everyone, this is Daniel from Awaken Music. I'm going to do a song breakdown for you today. I'm going to break down the song Peace After the Storm by Awaken Music. I'm going to show you a lot of the production tricks that I use, some of the sound design tools that I use to get the sounds that I got. And I'm going to talk about mixing techniques and maybe even mastering techniques because I did mix and master this song myself. So I hope there's some cool new tricks that you've never heard before that you can pick up in this video. And there's probably so many things as far as production tricks and sound tricks I did in this that I may actually do a second video to just kind of dive into even some more things that I did in this one particular song. So I hope you learn a lot. And if you've never heard this song, you can listen to it by clicking the link below. Okay, here we are. This is Pro Tools 12, and you're looking at the edit screen of Pro Tools 12. And if I Command plus, now we're over on the mix screen. And this is it. This is the whole session right here. As you see my mouse, I like to arrange my session from left to right. So I always start with my drums on the left, and usually I have bass shortly after. You can see the Moog synthesizer right here, which is my bass I'm using in this track, and then I have some more drum stuff, and then I have tuba, which I'm using certainly for the low end. And then in the middle, usually I have more of like my mid-range instruments. You can see I got Rhodes pianos, a few of them, a regular piano, and then I have two violins, violin 1, violin 2, actually 3 violins, violin 1, 2, and 3. And then you can see I have some guitar tracks, looks like about 4 guitar tracks. I have a vocal track, which I believe, I'm trying to remember now. I think it's just there's certainly no lyrics. I think it's just some vocals that I did, some hums and maybe some ahs, and I affected them and threw them in there as a layer. And then these are my auxiliary tracks. I got verb 1, verb 2, and then my mix track. So that's it. That's the whole session. And we can just kind of dive right into it. I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and we can just listen to the beginning of the song. All right, let's stop right there. So that first track is a Rhodes piano sound that I used from Omnisphere. So if we click up here in the inserts window right here, this is Omnisphere. And now obviously if you don't have Omnisphere, you can find Rhodes patches, in a lot of different softwares, and a lot of different VIs will have Rhodes patches. But if you do have Omnisphere, there's a really great Rhodes patch that I like to use called Pure in Spirit. I love the name, and it's a really great sounding Rhodes patch. So I'll play that again so you can kind of hear that. So yeah, just really pretty. And that's exactly how it sounded right out of Omnisphere. So nothing fancy there, just playing it right out of Omnisphere. And so let's move on to that next sound. So that next thing that comes in is actually, I'm excited to talk about that. That next thing that comes in, it's a Mellotron Patch. And so here's my Mellotron track. So you can hear that cello type of sound. Some solo in it. So yeah, that cello, just kind of a cello type sound. You can hear it. I got really into that Mellotron sound a few months ago. I noticed it. If you've never heard the Mellotron, you probably have heard it and not realized it. It's the song, let's see, Wonderwall by Oasis. The cello sound that's really predominant in that song, that's actually a Mellotron patch. And it's in a lot of other songs, but if you look it up, you'll find it in tons of songs. But another really well-known song is the Beatles' Strawberry Hill, that weird warbly patch in the beginning, the sound in the beginning of that song. That's the Mellotron. So I started really getting into the Mellotron sound, and it sounds kind of like a cello, but it's eerie. It can sound really eerie also, and kind of like just a little bit unsettling, a little bit dirty. And so it can sit in the track just a little better than a normal cello sound. So Again, you could just use a cello sound to kind of get that same kind of mid-range, cool warmth. But I really like that Mellotron patch. And also I'll show you one of the things on the Mellotron. So obviously this is my Mellotron track. So I'm running it through a tape plug-in to give it a little bit of bite, even more than it already has. And then I'm running it through a reverb plug-in called Abbey Road's Plate. And so you could use obviously any reverb just to kind of warm it up. But let me show you the difference with reverb and without. So here's without. Let me forward ahead there. And then here's with. So I'm just using it to give it that three-dimensional, really cool warmth. And this particular plugin really does a great job with that. But you could use any reverb plugin to give it that three-dimensional sound, and it just sits in the track a little better. So let's keep playing from there. So there's your bass sound. So for the bass, I'm using Moog synthesizer. The best thing I can recommend for this type of production, cinematic sounds. I love the Moog synthesizer. And so I'm using a Moog on that. I actually process the track, but the plugin I use, I believe, is Reactor's Monarch. But you can find Moog sounds in most VIs. But yes, I'm using that Moog sound for that low end right there. So let me keep playing from there. By the way, that's a tip in itself. Like the really deep, powerful low end that you hear in a lot of movie scores and a lot of more ambient production, stuff like this, electronic music, and even even a lot of pop stuff, they're using the Moog synthesizer because it just has a low end that's super thick and it just sounds like nothing else out there really. And so it's almost a must-have eventually, addition to your studio if you want to get that low end. Tuba. I started getting into tuba after I heard the Inception soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. He used so much tuba in there and it sounded so amazing. So I really started getting into using tuba for low end. I never thought I'd be into tuba, but it has such a great sound for the low end. So let me just solo that. So by itself, doesn't sound too spectacular, but now listen to it with the track. So there you go. That is another just little trick I used, is using tuba in conjunction with your normal bass sound can sound really, really cool. And so especially in cinematic stuff, but I've used it in pop, I've used it in a lot of things, and it just really can sound, it can be a really, really cool layer. So let's just fast forward here a little bit. Here's my drum patch for this part. And I'm really happy to talk about this particular patch because this is a stock Avid Pro Tools virtual instrument called Boom. So this, anybody who has Pro Tools has this VI. It's the stock, comes with it. I just happen to like it for that particular section. And again, it's just a real simple part, but really did the trick. So a lot of the VIs that come with Pro Tools 12 or Pro Tools, whatever version's current right now, they're fantastic. There's a lot of great stuff in right stock in Pro Tools, and you can get a ton of. There's a lot of songwriting VIs that are just perfect for so many things, just stock right in Pro Tools. And so this is an example, so I'll go ahead and play that. Okay, let's talk about this guy. Nice little bouncy string sound. So for that, I used a program that I love. Now, obviously, again, you could use any string and any VI you have, but the one I'm using is Hollywood Strings, and I'm using a violin patch, violin spiccato, and but yeah, just a real simple line. A lot of what I'm about is layers. Like, my instrument is the studio. And so, I find I love building songs as far as when you bring in certain things can really create different emotions. And so I experiment a lot with trying to see where things fit and where things should come in. And a tip I'll throw out there for creating music and producing in general is I don't recommend being in the studio for like 8 hours straight with no breaks, because you want to take frequent breaks, because you want to constantly come back and hear it with fresh ears, because you want to, as much as possible, you want to have some kind of idea of what someone's going to experience when they first hear the song. And so if you're just cranking it out for like 6, even 4 hours straight, you're really going to start to lose perspective as far as like what sounds good, what's up and what's down. So I like to take frequent breaks, come back fresh, and then listen and see how things are sitting. And now I'm talking about producing and also mix wise. But see how things are sitting as far as like when things are introduced, and see how things are sitting in the mix. And so anyway, let's play on from there. I think we're around here somewhere. Okay, so he has the bouncy little string patch. Let me find that guy. Okay, so you can see right here, just a simple little string patch, but in the mix. So chorus hits, and here's a production trick. When your chorus hits, you want things to open up a bit. You don't want your song to sound the same throughout as far as like dynamically. You want your chorus to be bigger in most cases. For me, in this song, when the chorus hits, it's not just getting louder, it's getting wider. Like I'm using a lot of little tricks to make things wide when the chorus hits. And one of the things I did, I think, at the very last moment before I finished the song, or towards the end, was I added these 4 guitar tracks here. You can see these 4 blue tracks. I've got them labeled guitar 3, guitar 4, guitar L, and guitar R. And this is one of the things I did to just give the chorus like a nice little lift. And if you listen to the guitars by themselves, you might even think, well, that's not going to sit right. Well, it looks like guitar 3. Okay, yeah, guitar 3 was just that little line going into the chorus. But so it's going to be these 3 that I used in the chorus. So let me solo those and show you what I mean. Okay, so now you might hear those and be like, how does that sound fit in this peaceful cinematic piece? And it fits very subtly in the back. Now if I play it with the track, you can kind of hear it, what it sounds like with. Take it out just so you can hear what it sounds like without. It just sounds like the life got sucked out of the song after hearing it with. And so it's just little things like that really can lift a chorus. Obviously you don't have to use guitar, you could use anything. But you know, the way I panned them, the effects that I used, let me see what I used here. Looks like I didn't use a ton of effect. I used a little bit of, no, I didn't use any effects, but more so just how I panned them. You can see I panned, pretty hard left on guitar L, pretty hard right on guitar R, or guitar L and guitar R. And then I think this one probably is just a really buzzy sounding, and I put it right up the middle. Let me see. Yeah, just really buzzy. Put that one right up the middle, mixed it in with these 2. And I take this out. Yeah, that really added. Like, listen, I'll put it back in. So yeah, anyhow. So the point is, you know, somebody told me a while ago, years ago, that songs can be like, they're kind of like movies. So your verses, which you can see here's my markers up here. I've labeled verse, and then where everything comes in, where the guitars come in, I've labeled chorus. So your verses, they're kind of like your dialogue scenes, like in a movie, and your choruses are more like your action scenes. So obviously in your action scenes, things get bigger, they grab your attention, so you're building. So, you know, in the first part of the song, it's like building the story, building for something big to happen, and that's this chorus right here where the guitars come in. So the point is, no matter what style of music you're doing, pretty much applies across the board. You want your choruses to have a lift. You want them to have some more excitement. You can do that 3-dimensionally with panning. You can do it 3-dimensionally with effects like reverb or delay. But you know, there's no rules, but just find a way to do it. You know, and that's honestly a big tip in production, is try things until you find something that works and that accomplishes what you are going after. And so sometimes you don't figure it out right away or find that thing right away, but just keep trying until you get that thing that works. In this case, those guitars really helped elevate that chorus where I wanted it to go. So let's play on from there. Actually, let me back up, because there's a cool piano line in the chorus that I want to talk about. That's it right there. So let's talk about that guy, this piano sound, and I'll tell you how I got this sound. Let me solo it. Okay. This tip alone is a really awesome tip if you're a producer and you're creating music of any kind. In fact, I'll probably do another video someday just on this one tip. So this, I kind of call this the Coldplay piano sound. If you listen to like clocks, that's kind of the same sound. And you're definitely, if you heard that, a piano doesn't sound like that. And I'm using a virtual instrument. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm using MiniGrand, which is another stock plugin that comes with Pro Tools. So anybody that has Pro Tools has this piano. But what I'm doing with that sound is really what makes all the difference, because let me take all my effects off and I'll show you what that sounds like without effects. Okay, again with effects. Okay, dramatic difference. Okay, so in a nutshell, I'll kind of show you in a little bit of detail, but I don't want to spend too much time on this. But in a nutshell, it's two things: compression and reverb. That's what's going to give you that Coldplay piano sound and this piano sound that you're hearing right now. So you can see up here, if you can see my mouse, MiniGrand. And depending on where you put your plugins, definitely makes a difference. And so I'm going to do, to get that sound, I'm going to use compression first. So I used, looks like I used a tape plugin just to get some more bite. A little bit of EQ there with FabFilter Pro Q2. But here's, by the way, this plugin right here is a free plugin you can get from Klanghelm, which is a great company. I think it's called the MJUC Junior. Yeah, you can see that right there, MJUC Junior. Free plugin you can download from Klanghelm, and it's an awesome plugin. And so I'm using, and I've got tons of plugins that I paid lots of money for, but I used this free one for this because it sounds so good. So again, that sound is compression, which let me play it while you're watching the compressor. So you're seeing tons of gain reduction. That's what you want. You want those piano notes to really get squashed. And then after that, I'm using Valhalla Room, which is an amazing reverb plugin that's super inexpensive. I think it's $49. And I'm using a preset. I probably tweaked it a little bit, but the preset Abbey Church of Fossa Nova. And I definitely tweaked it. I probably took the decay down. But that's it. That's what's going to give you that sound. Now, you don't have to have fancy plugins. Obviously, you can get Klanghelm for free. And the Valhalla Room is pretty inexpensive. But even with stock compressor, stock reverb, you can do that trick, that Coldplay piano sound. So that was really important. I wanted to show you that. So let me keep playing from there. Skip ahead. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm probably just going to find one or two more things to say about this song, and then we'll end this video. But let's see what we got going at the end here. Two more things and then we'll end this video. One is I want to talk about the relationship between, this is a mix, shifting into more mixing talk. I want to talk about the relationship between the kick and the bass the kick and the bass instrument, whether it's a bass guitar, whether it's a synth. In this case, it's a synth. I want to talk about the instrument or the relationship between those two. So in this case, I'm going to play my kick here. Come on now. Oh, okay, let me see. Okay, so there's my kick sound. Which, again, by itself probably doesn't sound that great, but it doesn't really matter what things sound like soloed. It matters what it sounds like in the track. And in the track, it fits really well. So, yeah, I'm using VMR, Slate's VMR, but it doesn't really matter. You can use... I'm just using that to get a little bit of a saturation. Let me see. That's all I'm using. Okay. So a lot of times, let me go to the Moog synth. And actually, this is funny because I'm not doing it on this particular session. But this is what I do on so many sessions. I'm going to show you a trick what I do. Actually, I may have done this and you're just not seeing it because I process this track. So usually my kick drum, I like it to live in the 60 hertz to 80 hertz range, and it's usually the lowest frequency in my mixes is going to be kick, and then after that is going to be bass. And so here's a little mixing trick, is when you go, if you know that your kick lives in the 60 hertz range, and you can double check that with like a graphic EQ, you can kind of see where your kick, the bottom end of your kick is living. But what you can do is you can go to your bass track. So in this case, it's the Moog synthesizer. So go to your bass track, and you could use any EQ to do this. Okay, so there's my bass soloed. And I'm going to go ahead and dip around 60 hertz. So I'm going to get this around 60 hertz, and I'm going to do a dip around 60. And here's why, because if I know that my kick drum is living right here in this frequency, I want to get rid of this frequency in my bass instrument so that they kind of coexist better. Works like a charm. You can experiment with this and just see what it sounds like with and without, but I know so many producers and mix engineers do this trick to try to get, because your kick and your bass is your rhythm section at your bottom end. You want to make them sound good together, and so you don't have a mushy low end. And so that's one of the things that you can do to get them to really exist. In fact, you could do something, if this were the kick drum track, you could boost a little bit at 60 if you needed it, and then cut in the bass at that same frequency. And so you're kind of giving them their own life. I find bass instruments are more 100 hertz plus anyway, is where the real warmth of them is. And so I'll cut bass instruments sometimes up to 60 to 80 hertz anyway. But yeah, this is a nice little trick that you can use. Okay, so last thing, I want to talk about mastering. I did master this track. And so if you go over here to the mix bus, so I'm feeding, and if you look at let me look at this. So here's my edit window. There's my mastered track right there. So what I like to do is I bounce my master in the session. So how I do that is I'm bussing all these tracks here. You can see I'm going to bus them all to this mix channel. And I'm going to bus out of the mix channel to this, which is my master track. And then I'm going to record it right into the session. And I like doing that for a lot of reasons. Number one, I like to see it. I don't like to do the bounce. If you go up here and you just hit File, Bounce to, you can do that. And it's just going to spit an audio track out to a folder, and you're not going to really see, unless you re-import it, you don't see what it really looks like, what's really happening. I like to actually see it, make sure I'm not compressing too much. And see, to me, that looks like a nice track that's not over compressed. It's loud, but it's not too loud. It's still got dynamics. And so I wanted to talk about that. And then I'll just show you my processing. So everything's going to the mix bus, and then it's going through these three plugins. So it's going through Slate's VMR. So it's a little bit, this is a virtual mix bus. So this is emulating a It's emulating a console. This particular one's emulating an SSL. So it's just giving me a little bit of saturation and stickiness going into that mix bus. I'm not doing a ton of EQ here. I'm trying to see. It doesn't look like I'm doing, just a little teeny bit of cutting here at 300. So I'm using an SSL EQ, cutting just a little bit of mud, 300, not much at all, just like 1.2 decibels. By the way, now this Revival, this is a free plugin. So if you download Slate's VMR, this, and I think he's got a few other ones that are free plugins. This is an awesome free plugin, so go download it. It's hard to explain exactly what it does. It's not you could say it's EQ, but it's adding like harmonic saturation, I believe, in here in the lows and then here in the highs, as well as boosting some frequencies in the highs. It just sounds cool. I don't even know exactly how they made it, but it sounds really cool, and it sounds great on mixes. And so I know even mastering engineers, some that use it right on their mix bus or on their masters. And then I'm adding a little bit of air, you can see here, to the mix with this plugin. From there, I'm going into a compressor, which this is emulating I believe this is emulating a Manly Very Moo. It's a Slate digital emulation. I believe this is emulating a Manly sound, Manly Very Moo. I've got the mix set to 81%, so it's not totally 100% wet. And then the last thing I'm doing is I'm going to a final stage limiter, which in this case is the PSP Xenon, which I love. This isn't the only one I use, but sometimes this just really does the trick. So this is a final stage limiter, and that's how I'm getting that loudness. If you look at that track, that's how I'm able to get it loud. And depending on the limiter used, you're going to be able to get loud without sounding crunched and over compressed, and I think the Xenon does a great job of that. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful to you, and I'm going to do a lot more videos like this and break down the songs and kind of go into more detail. If you have any suggestions of like more things I could have talked about, please put those in the comments. If this video helps you, please like the video. And also, please subscribe to this channel and click that bell so you can be notified when we do new videos. We're going to do about one video every single week. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm signing off.